Do you know that you can use your voice as an input in mixed reality? In this video, I'm going to show you how to use the Meta Voice SDK to turn speech into text, break down the text into intent and entities, and use this information to trigger any behavior that you want.
Scale the cylinder.
But we will not stop there, because I will also release a super advanced Patreon exclusive tutorial this week where we will learn how to create a wake word, do some user interface, and use the voice recognition with an AI that can not only answer to you, but even describe what you see using the pass-through camera.
Hey Valem, what I'm looking at?
A monstera plant with large green leaves in a black pot, next to a gray chair.
If you guys are interested to learn more and get access to exclusive content, but also support the channel, the link is in the description. Now, without further ado, let's learn how to use our voice as an input. Okay, so here we are in Unity, and as you can see, I've already done the VR setup with here, the OVR camera rig. I also have a 3 little shape that I will be able to use with the voice recognition in just a minute, but for now, we need to add Wit.ai to this application. And the good news is, if you are already using the Meta All-in-One SDK, like it's the case for me here, it is already within this package. So if we go to Windows, Package Manager, then if we go to In Project, you should see here the Meta Voice SDK immersive voice command that is already added when you download the Meta XR All-in-One. Also, if you go to the samples over there, you can see a bunch of demos that are very cool and that can explain you a bit better how everything is working within this package. But don't worry, you are not obligated to use the Meta XR to use the Wit.ai SDK. It can even work for non-VR projects, and you will find in this description a link to download this SDK separately. Now anyway, to get started, we simply need to go to Meta Voice SDK and get started. So there you go. As you can see, we can select languages here, but in my case, I will select the custom app because we are going to build our own NLP within Wit.ai. Now, anyway, the next step is to paste here our Wit.ai server access token. And for this, we can simply click on Wit.ai over there. It will open a web page for us. And after connecting with your Facebook account, you can simply click on New App over there. In my case, I will do voice detection. For the name, for the language, I will set it to English, and I'm going to set it to private and simply click on create. Beautiful. Now we are on Wit.ai, and as you can see, we are able to train the AI with some custom sentence over there in the understanding here. But before doing so, we need to go to management and then on settings. And here we can find our server access token, which we can copy by simply clicking on the text. Now we can simply go back to Unity and paste what we have and then click on create. There we go. We can give a name to the asset. I'm going to name mine custom NLP. Beautiful. And there we go. Now at this point, this opens the Voice Hub, which contains some documentation, some samples, some Wit configuration here, and even some settings over there. But in our case, we are going to close this window and go back to the Wit.ai website because we are going to create our first sentence. So let's go to the understanding here and let's type an utterance. And of course, this depends on the application that you want to build. In my case, I'm going to write move the cube. Beautiful. Then I'm going to click on intent. And here the intent is basically the meaning behind this utterance. Now I'm simply going to write the intents to be trigger animation. There we go. And then I can click on create intent. Beautiful. Now that's done, we can click on train and validate. There we go. Now on the top left corner, we can see that the AI is actually training by now with the new utterance that we've added. And after waiting a little bit, there you go. As you can see, the training is complete, which means that the utterance that we just created is now part on our NLP and that it can be used to trigger something. Okay, now that we have created our first utterance, the next step to do is actually to create the app voice experience component, which is basically the manager of everything that will be voice recognized. So to do so, we can right click, go to create empty, call it voice manager, for example. We can reset its position to 0, 0, 0. And we can click on add component and here add the app voice experience component. Now to finish the setup of the app voice experience, we simply need to drag the custom NLP that we just created over there on the Wit configuration. And there we go. Now everything is ready. We can test our first utterance by going to Meta, Voice SDK and clicking here on Understanding Viewer. Now, with this understanding viewer, we will be able to test here basically the different utterances that we have directly in Unity. For example, if I write move the cube and then that I click on send, well, it does not work. And I believe that this is a bug, but we can get around it by simply clicking on play over there. There we go. If we click on send again, as you can see, it works. After waiting a little bit, it can say that the text was moved the cube. And if we go under the intent, we can see that with a confidence at 100%, it recognizes the trigger animation intents, which is awesome. Now we can leave play mode. And the next step is of course to trigger something when this intent is recognized. To do so, we can simply go on the trigger animation over there and simply right click and click then on add response matcher to voice manager. And now as you can see, this will add a response manager component to the voice manager that we've just created, which will basically trigger something when the intent is trigger animation. You can even set here the confidence threshold if you want. And if we want to trigger something with this intent, we can simply click on the on multi-value event over there, click on the plus button and simply create an event right there. Now in my case, I'm going to drag here the animated cube game object. And as you can see on this animated cube, I have an animator. And on this animator, I can go to set trigger string and here write move. There we go. Now if we have a look at the animated cube, you can see that this animated cube contains an animator. Now, if I open this animator, let me move that to the side. This animator basically contains 3 animations, one to scale, one to rotate, and another one to move. Now, basically, when we will say the sentence move the cube, it will be recognized by the voice manager and will be able to trigger the move animation. Okay, so now let's test this. I'm going to remove here the understanding viewer, put my VR headset on and click on play. Okay, so as you can see, I'm in VR right now, but even if I speak here, move the cube, you can see that nothing happens. This is because we simply need to activate the voice recognition. To do so, we can go to the voice manager over there, and you can see that there is an editor button that can activate the voice recognition. So let's test this. I'm going to click on activate, move the cube. And there you go. As you can see, it works. What's very interesting here with this component is that if you click on activate, you can also see your mic range and the volume of your mic with also here the transcription that you are doing with basically everything that I'm saying, which is super useful, of course. And that's something you can also use for anything more than just voice recognition, but maybe voice to text, for example. Now, another thing that I can say is here, as you can see, even if I say something random like testing, as you can see, it also moved the cube. This is because we only have one utterance, but don't worry, this will be automatically fixed later on. Okay, so now the next step is to be able to activate the voice recognition, not from here, this app voice experience component. To do so, I'm going to click back on the voice manager, and here I'm going to click on add component and write a voice manager script. Okay, so on the script, we simply need to go at the top and write using oculus.voice, beautiful. Now we can simply do public app voice experience, and I will call it app voice. And there we go. Now on the update function, if we do if ovr input.getDown, and here we can say any button that we want. Now in my case, I'm going to do ovr input.button.1, which is basically the A button on the right controller. And in this case, we can do app voice.activate. And there we go, that is as simple as this. Now let's save the script and go back to Unity. Now we can simply drag the app voice experience over there. And let's find out if this works by clicking on play. Okay, and here we go. If I press on the A button and then I say something like move the cube. There you go, as you can see, it works. So now I can activate the voice recognition simply with a push of a button, which is awesome. And that's something that we will actually improve with a wake word in our Patreon exclusive tutorial. So if you want to support my work and get access to exclusive content, go have a look at the link in the description. But anyway, before ending this tutorial, I really want to show you something more with here this Wit.ai SDK, and it is the entities. Because as you saw, we have different shape and different animation than just the move cube. So if we wanted to be able to, for example, rotate the cylinder or scale the sphere or scale the cube, do we really need to create a separate utterance for each one of these actions? And the answer is of course no, thanks to the awesome entities. Okay, so now that we are back to Wit.ai, if we write the same utterance as before, move the cube, as you can see, it recognized the trigger animation intent, but now if we select only move, we can actually break down this utterance in different entities. For example, I'm going to write here action, and then click on create entity. Then here I'm going to select the cube, and for the cube I'm going to write shape and click on create entity. Now that's done, we can select back move here and set here the entity for move to be action. And now as you can see, this is actually creating a separate entity for the action with here a move result value. Now if we do the same for the cube, let's select all cube and set it to shape. There we go, this actually works as well, which is awesome. Now we can click on train and validate. Beautiful, and now let's try to add more. For example, scale the cylinder. Beautiful. As you can see, the intent is already defined to be trigger animation, but now we can select scale and set it to be the action. We can select the cylinder, set it to be the shape, and we can train and validate again. Now I'm going to write rotate the sphere. The intent is correct, but it didn't find any entities, so let's select rotate. And here set it to be an action. And for the sphere, let's set it to be shape. And now we can again train and validate. And now by doing so, we should be able to create all combinations that we want. So for example, I can do scale the sphere and let's see if this works. And as you can see, it recognized that scale the sphere, even if it wasn't a utterance that we've typed out, it recognized the scale action and the sphere shape and is able to say that this is part of the trigger animation intent. Now that's it, that is awesome. Let's click on train and validate once again. There we go, and now everything should work. Now you can even have a look at the different intents that you have with the entities over there. And if we click on entities, we have all of the entities that we have for the action, the shape. And finally, if we go to utterance, we can have a look at the different utterance that we've actually added. And if we click on down below, you can see how every utterance is separated. Now let's find out all this work in Unity. Okay, so now let's test this utterance that has multiple entities. And to do so, we can simply go again to Meta, Voice SDK, and then Understanding Viewer. Then again, let's click on play. Beautiful. And now let's try something like scale the cylinder and click on send. As you can see, it worked. The text was recognized. And now if we go to the intent, we can see that it was recognized for the trigger animation intents with almost 100% confidence. And now if we go to entities, we can see that we have two entities, the action and the shape. For the action, we can see that it was found to be the scale, and for the shape, it was found to be the cylinder. So everything seems to be working, but now the big question is, how can we trigger an event with this type of utterance? Now to do so, let's leave play mode. And here I'm going to select back the voice manager and remove the old response matcher that we used before. There we go. Now let's create another response matcher with here these new entities. We simply need to go under the first entities and under the action, let's right click and add response matcher to voice manager. Beautiful. Now, as you can see, this will add a response matcher that will contain here for the value matcher or action value and for the intent, the trigger animation intent from earlier. But then let's add another entities. And for this, I'm going to go under the shape, right click under value and click on not add response matcher because we already have a response matcher, but we are going to need to click to add value matcher. And as you can see, instead of adding a new response matcher, this is adding another value with this time the shape value from our entity. And there we go. Now with these two values, we will be able to create a multi-value event that we can recognize. Now let's close here the understanding viewer. And from that point on, we can simply create a custom function that will be able to take as input a string array, and from this string array, do everything that we want. Okay, so after some time, this is what I have. I have made a shape animator component that take as an input the cube animator, the sphere animator, and the cylinder animator. And now if we open the script, as you can see, the script will take the first input to be the action, the second one to be the shape. Now the toLower function will make sure that everything is in lower caps. Then depending on the value of the action and the value of the shape, we are going to set the target animator.setTrigger with the appropriate animator and the appropriate trigger name. And from the string array of input over there, we should be able to trigger anything that we want. So if we leave, the last thing that we need to make sure of is to go to the voice manager, and here on the on multi-value event, we can click on the plus button and drag the shape animator over there. Then we can go to shape animator and select the trigger animation at the top over there, which will take as a parameter the string array with the different entities. There we go. Now let's click on play to find out if this works.
Scale the cylinder. Move the cylinder. Scale the cube. Rotate the cube.
And there you go guys, this is how you can use your voice as an input. Now by the way, if you like me, you have some issue pronouncing some word and that not everything is recognized, you can go back to the Wit website, then under management, go to entities and here add synonym from your entities to make your recognition even stronger. Now I hope that you enjoyed this tutorial, but if you want to go further and learn how to create a wake word and add an AI that can answer to you and describe what you see, you can join us on Patreon to access this exclusive tutorial. The link is in the description. And on that matter, a big shout out to my Patreon who will appear on the screen. This not only helps us support the channel, but can make you a better XR developer. So thank you for watching and see you soon. Bye bye.